There's nothing worse than arriving in your destination, super excited to start your trip, only to find out that someone tampered with your luggage and your valuables are missing. To avoid this, here's how to prevent theft from checked luggage using 8 proven strategies, some of which I bet you're forgetting. Stick to the end for a sneaky trick that I've used to successfully prevent theft while traveling over the past 9 years on the road, including some pretty sketchy places. First is to not use those TSA locks. TSA locks have these red Travel Sentry logos on them and they're approved in 82 different countries. But if you're not traveling in one of those countries, then airport security might break off your lock and potentially damage your luggage if they need to search your bag. This has happened to me multiple times, and I've had many people comment saying that it's also happened to them when traveling within the US. And this goes for those individual standalone locks as well as locks that are built into your suitcase. And if you have those built-in locks, you need to be even more careful if the lock is the clasp itself that closes the bag versus some other luggage where the zippers are normal and it clasps into a separate lock. Because if the lock is the actual clasp and then security breaks your lock, then your bag basically becomes useless. If you already have a bag like this, one thing I recommend doing is just setting the combination to 000 and then moving the little dial so it's set to 010 or something, and then on a little piece of tape or something, write the combination is 000. So if the TSA or airport security needs to open your bag, they have the code right there and they don't need to break it. You might be wondering, what's the point of having a lock on your bag if you're just going to write the code on it? And the point is that you can use it for the rest of your trip, just not when you check it into the airline. In a sec, I'll show you some alternative ways to secure your bags without using your lock. And if you do insist on using one of those individual separate TSA locks, make sure you're extra careful on where it's hanging off of your bag, because if it's hanging loosey-goosey, it can get caught in those conveyor belts and get ripped off. This tip comes directly from the TSA website. If possible, try to adjust your zippers so the lock's just not hanging out there in the open. You might be able to tuck it into a water bottle pocket or under a strap or something. There are, however, safer ways to add security to your checked luggage without using those TSA locks. For example, you could use one of those spiral keyring thingies and lock your zippers together. You could use loosely tightened zip ties or even those bread zip tie thingies. Or I also bought some of these little double-sided clip thingies on Amazon for super cheap, and they come in kind of handy. If security needs to search your bag, they can just cut or slide off any of these things without the need to damage your bag. And if you've ever heard of the pen hack, where thieves can poke a little hole in your zipper and open and close your bag without you knowing it, then you might be wondering, what's the point of using locks or key rings or any of these things anyways? Well, I found one Redditor answer this better than I ever could. He said, by that logic, what is locking your doors protecting you against? A burglar can easily break in with a crowbar that costs less than $10. The majority of crimes are crimes of opportunity, and most house break-ins and stolen cars are due to leaving things unlocked. The same premise here goes with your luggage. It's not going to prevent all crimes, but it's going to prevent the easy ones. All that said, there are ways you can protect yourself more against the pen trick. A lot of airports have stations where you can wrap your luggage with saran wrap, which makes it essentially impossible for a thief to get into your bag discreetly. To save money, you can buy your own saran wrap and do this yourself, but just be careful that you don't accidentally have any prohibited items inside your bag and that all your bags are the correct weight, because if you go to the check-in counter and realize you have to move things around, it would suck to have to rip off all that saran wrap. My wife Diane always insists that we saran wrap our checked bags whenever we're leaving Colombia. But her worry isn't that someone's going to steal stuff, she's more worried that a baggage handler is going to add something illegal and slip it into our bags. I'm personally not sure if this is paranoia or if this stuff actually happens. It kind of sounds like a myth to me, but I guess you can never be too safe. Let me know in the comments if you think it's a valid concern and if you've ever worried about someone slipping things into your bag. Anyway, this thought has made me rethink what information is safe to write on your luggage tags, but we'll get to that in a second. An alternative to saran wrap is to just get yourself a big bag cover that's basically just a giant bag that goes over top of your luggage or backpack. These are usually lockable, but even if you don't actually lock it, this will help prevent opportunistic theft and keep your luggage secure. Guys, if this video has given you any new ideas so far, give it a like so it gets shown to more travelers like you. The next thing you always want to do is to take pics of the outside and inside of your checked luggage, as well as keep a list of everything you packed in your notes app. Doing this serves a bunch of different purposes. First, if your luggage gets lost or stolen and you need to make a claim for reimbursement, you'll have proof of what was in your bag. I like to take a picture of the inside of my luggage when I'm at home and packing, and then the outside of my luggage right before I check it in at the counter. That way, if my luggage itself gets damaged by the airline, then I'll have proof of what the condition was beforehand. According to the Department of Transportation, airlines are liable for damaged baggage and its contents. There are a few exceptions though, like if you pack fragile items or electronics in your checked bags. However, these exceptions only apply to domestic flights. If the airline damages items on an international flight, they're liable to reimburse you for the value of those items, even if they were on the exceptions list, which I'll link to below if you're interested. As far as your luggage itself goes, they aren't liable for normal wear and tear, but if they damage your wheels or handles or straps or other components of your luggage, then they're liable to reimburse you. If you want an extra layer of protection, there's also several different travel credit cards that offer coverage for lost and delayed luggage, and I'll link to my favorite ones that I personally use down in the description. Lastly, if you didn't pay for your trip with a credit card that offers this protection, sometimes it's also covered by your travel insurance policy. For example, Safety Wing, who I partnered with to make this video, covers up to $500 per item and $3,000 per policy period for lost luggage. And the last benefit of keeping a note of all the contents of your luggage on your phone is that you'll be able to quickly check to make sure everything's accounted for. Without it, you might not remember exactly everything that you packed. Having this list saved will also make it easier to pack for your next trip without forgetting anything. Before we get into one of my favorite ninja tips to protect your luggage, I just want to give the most obvious tip of all, which is to not pack your valuables in your checked luggage at all. Pack your valuables in your carry-on, which you're going to have with you. Better yet, keep it in a personal item that you'll have with you at all times, unlike a carry-on, which you have to put in the overhead bin. And a quick tip about overhead bins, I don't know if living in Colombia for the past 9 years has made me paranoid, but if I have valuables in my carry-on backpack, when I put it in the overhead bins, I make sure to flip my bag around so that the zippers are pointing towards the deep end, so that if I fall asleep or something on the plane, someone can't open it and easily open the zippers and sneak their fingers in there. Now this obviously makes things a little bit more of a hassle if you need to get stuff out of your carry-on, but that's why I like to keep everything that I'm going to use on my flight in my personal item, which I put under the seat, in my fanny pack, or in my Scotty vest, which has like 30 different pockets. As for the rest of your trip, I know a lot of people, including myself, get a little bit anxious when carrying around a bunch of expensive electronics like laptops and headphones and tablets and drones and those types of things. This is especially true in countries where theft is more common. When I used to stay in hostels, there were several times where the lockers just didn't close very securely, and so then whenever I was out exploring, I was constantly thinking about the thousands of dollars of gear that I had laying around back in the hostel. Or even in guest houses and hotels, I still feel a little bit weird about leaving all my gear out there and open. One time in Brazil, I unlocked my hotel door, walked in, looked around, and literally thought I was losing my mind for a second because the room just looked a tiny bit different and my luggage wasn't where I left it. Then I realized it wasn't even my room. I had accidentally unlocked my neighbor's door and walked into my neighbor's room. It turns out all the keys and door locks to the entire hotel were the same. Since then, I've noticed this at multiple different guest houses that we've stayed at, and so just remember that just because you lock your doors doesn't mean that your stuff is safe. If you travel with electronics and want a little extra peace of mind, Safety Wing Nomad Insurance offers optional add-on coverage for electronic theft, which covers you up to $1,000 per item and $3,000 per policy period. This add-on coverage comes out to about the price of one gumball per day, which is nothing compared to the peace of mind it can give you. Obviously, electronics coverage isn't the main reason to get travel insurance though. You also want to be covered for medical accidents and emergencies, which, speaking from experience, happen more often when you think when traveling. Safety Wing has covered me for over $16,000 of medical expenses thanks to all my accidents over the years. These accidents tend to happen when you're least expecting it, so if you want to get covered, I'll add a link to their instant quote page in the description. Okay, back to one of my favorite tips to protect your checked luggage. This one's called the Silent Ninja AirTag strategy, which is basically using an AirTag to track your luggage, but with a twist. And I'm assuming something similar would work with other non-Apple trackers, like I think one's called the Samsung Galaxy Smart Tag or something, but you have to do your own research to see if it's possible. So it's pretty obvious why an AirTag would be useful for lost luggage, but if someone steals your luggage, then there's just one problem. If the thief has an iPhone, then they'll get an alert on their phone saying that there's an unknown AirTag tracking them. Then they'll be given the option to make the AirTag beep so that they can find and disable it. Apple obviously created this feature to protect people from getting stalked by using AirTags. The workaround is to simply pop the AirTag open and remove the speaker so that you can't hear the beeping noise, and I found a really good YouTube tutorial which I'll link to below. It doesn't make it go totally silent, but it'll make it way harder to find, especially if you have it in a good hiding spot in your luggage. And if you can't find any good hiding spots in your bag, I'll show you some clever alternative hiding spots in a second. But before we get into those, I just want to mention that if you want even more clever travel hacks and digital nomad lifestyle tips, you can join my email newsletter for free. I send one email per week with all of my best tips that I don't share anywhere else. Another way you can protect your luggage from theft is using the right type of luggage. For example, hard shell suitcases are more secure than soft shells, which thieves can slash open. And luggage with bright colors or unique designs makes it harder to steal because it stands out compared to normal generic black luggage that 100 other travelers have. If you want, you can add paint, patches, or stickers like I did here with my black suitcase. If you already have a generic looking suitcase and don't want to buy a whole new one, you can also just buy some luggage straps, which will make it harder to get into your bag. Again, the brighter the better to make it stand out. Thieves don't want to steal things that'll draw attention to themselves. And you might think that I'm a crazy, paranoid person by now, but it gets worse. Remember when we talked about people slipping illegal substances into your bag? Well, if you were a bad guy, how would you choose which bag to slip your goods into? If it were me, I would choose the one that has a luggage tag with the person's home address written right on it. That way I'd know exactly where to come looking for it if I needed to. Again, I'm not really convinced that this is actually a thing that drug smugglers do, but I mostly just go along with it because happy wife, happy life, and it's not worth arguing about. Plus, why not just play it safe and put your email address on there instead of your exact home address? Does everyone who touches your bag really need to know where you sleep at night? When you arrive in your destination, instead of rushing out of the airport, take a quick second to inspect your luggage at the luggage carousel to make sure that it doesn't look like it was tampered with or damaged. And if anything looks suspicious or broken, report it to the airlines right then and there. In order to get reimbursed, several different airlines require you to make your claim within 4 hours of arriving, so it's better to do it before you leave the airport. And if your flight arrives late at night and the help desk is closed, then make sure to call the customer service number or see if you can file your claim with the airline online. Once you're in your destination, you still need to keep your valuables safe for the entire rest of your trip. For small stuff like emergency cash and jewelry, I recommend using low-key hiding spots like a deodorant stick, a chapstick tube, mint container, or maybe a rolled up pair of socks that you keep separated from the rest of them. Ideally, you'll divide these hiding spots between different bags so that if you happen to lose one bag, you won't lose everything. Just make sure not to have anything hidden in your checked bag when you're actually on your flight in case it gets lost in transit. In addition to secret hiding spots, there's also some other super important tips to protect yourself from theft while traveling, and I cover them all in this video. Tourists are easy targets for thieves, so I highly recommend following all the tips in this video. All right guys, like, subscribe, do the things. Love you, bye-bye.